Hello everyone, I am Saideepa Kaigari from Tricentis. Today we are going to discuss some commonly faced challenges in automating SAP application using Tosca. Let us have a look into the topics which we are going to discuss in today's video. First of all, we will discuss about some prerequisites that are required for automating SAP application. Once we are done with the prerequisites, we will move on to SAP table tree steering and discuss about some commonly faced challenges in that. Next, we will be looking into the SAP tree view automation. Finally, we'll discuss some concepts on SAP table tree steering. Let us discuss about the first part of our video, which is the prerequisites required for automating SAP application. Before starting SAP automation, you need to enable the SAP scripting both on the server side and the client side. There are few steps which you need to do in order to enable these scripting parameters. To know more about these scripting parameters, log into the support portal with your registered credentials and then search for SAP GUI scripting in the search bar available here. Navigate to the knowledge base tab available here and then select the first available knowledge base article, which is how to activate SAP GUI scripting. This article clearly mentions all the steps which are required in enabling SAP GUI scripting both on the server side and the client side. In order to enable the scripting parameters on the server side, please note that you need to have a SAP user ID which is having access to RZ11 transaction code. Once you log into the user ID and open RZ11 transaction code, do the settings as shown here. Once the server settings are done, you need to activate scripting on the client, which is a pretty easy task. You can follow the steps mentioned here to do so. Once the scripting parameters are done, both on the server side and the client side, you can proceed with SAP automation. These are the prerequisites which are required for SAP automation. Moving on to the next topic, when we talk about SAP automation, the most challenging part is the table steering. When you have a very big table which is having more than 100 rows, you might land up in trouble. Let us see how to overcome these issues. Along with the big table, we have some other common issues in the tables. Let us have a look at them too. For our demonstration here, I am using a table in SC16N transaction code. This is the table. This table has around 500 rows in it. Firstly, scanning this table itself would take a very long time. To reduce this time, we can make use of the native filters available on most of the SAP tables. If you have a look at the table, there is a toolbar above the table and here you can see a button called Set Filter. When you click on this particular button, you will be getting a filter pop-up. From this pop-up, you can set filters on the table and remove the unwanted rows. For example, I am setting this filter called personal number and then I need to give the value in the second step. Say I am giving the value called 1000 here. Now if you see, what happened is personal number is the second column of this table. The table is filtered in such a way that the personal number column is having the value 1000. All the other values of this particular column have been filtered off. Now the table is small and you can scan the table easily without any issue. The time span taken for this table to get scanned will be minimized. Note that to scan a table, you don't need the entire table present on the screen. Just the structure with at least one row in the table would be enough. The other issue with this big tables is setting a constraint on the table. When the table is having around 500 rows in it, setting a constraint would be very difficult because the control would iterate from row to row until it reaches the end of the table to search the constrained value. To overcome this issue, again you can follow the same steps that I have mentioned earlier. You can filter off the unwanted rows. As you already know the value to be constrained, you can use that particular value in the filter and then remove the unwanted rows. For example, if you want to set a constraint on this table such that the personal number is 1000, you can filter off the table in such a way that the personal number column will have only values 1000 in it. To do that, you can follow the same steps that I have mentioned earlier. You might have a question, how do we do this using Tosca? This is a simple process. You can automate these steps using the normal SAP engine present in the Tosca XScan. If you see, I have already scanned a module for this table and the steps which are needed to filter off the table. You might face one more issue while doing this. Let me scan that filter button and show it to you. I'm using the Tosca XScan, and then in this screen selection window, I'm going to the SAP screen present, and if you see, I have used the normal SAP engine itself and I'm scanning the table. I'm using the select on screen option available here. If you see, I can't identify this button because it is present as a toolbar which is present in the table itself. This button is embedded in the table. So to scan a module for this button, select the entire table, set the filter to the maximum, and when you do this, you can see multiple buttons. These are the buttons which are present on the top. If you see, these are details, sort in ascending order, and multiple buttons. Now for our purpose, the button we need is set filter. I am selecting this button. You can use any of the properties available for this button. So this is how I have scanned the button called set filter. As I already have a module for this, I'm not saving this now. So this is the table and here is the filter button. I have also created a test case which filters the table. Let me execute this test case and show. But before executing this, let me make the table to normal. Let me delete the filter on the table so that it is having all the rows. Now I'll execute this test case. As you see, the table has been filtered in such a way that it is having only the rows which we require. Now you might face one more issue while doing this. If you see this filter pop-up, there are two fields here. One is the filter criteria and the other one is column set. These two will be getting identified as tables initially. So you might face an issue while selecting the filter criteria. As we are on this page, there is one more common issue users face. Let me show that as well now. This is the pop-up which we need to scan. And I'm using the SAP engine itself. Click on scan. Select on screen. And as I have told you earlier, these two fields will be identified as tables. Now there is an issue when you scan empty tables. If you notice, this table called filter criteria is not having any values in it. Only the header is present. So if you scan such tables in SAP, you will face this issue called connection to the application lost. Maybe the application was closed or refaced during the scan. To overcome these kind of issues, what you need to do is you need to give an entry into the table. Just fill the table with some value. If I select this table now, I won't see the error that I have seen earlier because there is an entry in this table. This error is not only seen in this particular table, but in all the SAP tables which are empty. So whenever you see the error called connection to the application has been lost, just enter some value into the table and then try scanning it. You won't face that issue again. So this is an error which I wanted to show. As I told you earlier, you might face an issue in setting the filter. So for that, let me show you how to follow the process. As on this screen, we have two fields called column set and filter criteria. While filtering off, our use case will be selecting one of the fields from the column set and push it to the filter criteria table. You might face a problem while selecting a value from the table called column set. In the table column set, you need to select a row and then push it to the filter criteria. To do so, leave the row as empty. Don't give any value for the row. Use the keyword called select beside the row and set the action mode to input. In the column name, select the required cell, which is column name in our case, and give the value which you want to use as a filter. For example, in my case, I wanted to use the value called personal number as a filter criteria. So I have given that and then set the action mode to constrain. Now what happens is, when the Tosca executes this particular test step, it would search for the value called personal number and will select the row. Once I have selected the field called personal number from the column name table, I have used the button called add filter criterion, which if you see the arrow mark present here. Once this button is clicked, the personal number will be seen in this filter criteria table, and after that we need to give the filter value. Once this is done, the other steps are pretty easy. You don't face any issue in that. So this is how you set a constraint on the table which is having more number of rows. The other commonly seen issue in SAP table steering is selecting and deselecting a row of an SAP table. Let us use the same table which we are using till now for this example as well. So this is the table again in SE69 transaction code. Whenever you want to select a row in an SAP table, the thing you need to do is you need to click on this area present here. So what most of the people does is they try to scan this area as well and then using a click operation on it. But this is not a recommended way. Also, I have seen many people giving the cell as $1 and then doing the click operation on that. That won't click on this area. Instead, what happens is it will be clicking on this area because this is considered as cell 1, not this. So let us see how to select a row on SAP using Tosca. I have created a demo test case for that. So when you want to select a row, you need to give the row number which is to be selected and the corresponding value should be given as select, which is enclosed in curly braces. And don't forget to set the action mode to input. Let us see, if I run this particular test step, row 1 should be selected. So yes, this is how row 1 could be selected. Again, there is one more issue. You might land up in certain situations where you need to select more than one row. In such cases, if you use two selects on it, it won't work. Let me show that. I'm giving $2, which is second row, and again the same thing, select, and the action mode should be input. So if I run this step, row 1 and row 2 are selected, but if you see, the selection of row 1 didn't last. As soon as the row 2 has been selected, the row 1 got deselected. This happens even if you do it manually. So the question is how to select two rows at a time. In such cases, you have one more keyword. Instead of using select here, use add select as a keyword and the same thing, set the action mode to input. Let us run this test step and see. Row 1 and row 2 together are selected. So this is how you need to use add select for selecting more than one row. The keyword select should be given on the first row, and from the next row onwards the keyword add select should be given. This could be done for multiple rows. In this case I have used 2 rows, but you can use it for more than 2 rows. Also, there is one more commonly asked question in SAP tables. How do I select a row in SAP table when I know the value of a cell but not the exact location of that row, which is you don't know the row number in certain cases. For example, let us consider a case here. I wanted to select a row having the value personal number as 1000. But again, there is one more issue. There are many rows having the personal number value as 1000. So the use case here is I wanted to select the row which is having personal number as 1000 and it should be the first occurrence. That is, the first occurrence of 1000 as the personal number should be selected. Let us see how to do that. Clear this thing. And you shouldn't give $1 here. Instead, give it as #1 and set 1000 here. The cell is personal number and the action mode should be constrained. So I'm searching for the row where the value of personal number is 1000 and the 1000 should be the first occurrence. If you see, as there are many rows having the value called 1000 in personal number, you need to select the first occurrence. In such cases, you need to use #1. So a constraint has been run on this table and it has searched for the first occurrence of 1000 for the cell personal number in this table. If you have a doubt, let us see this with #5. Now it should select the fifth occurrence of the cell. So yes, the fifth occurrence has been selected. This is how you need to use the keyword select and add select. There might be a case where you need to deselect a row from the table as well. In such cases, you need to use the keyword called deselect. You need to follow the same process which you have followed for the select and add select keywords. Instead, you should use the keyword called deselect. That is the only difference. Let us run this as well and check. So I have selected the first row manually. Now if I run this particular test step, the first row should be deselected. Yes, and the first row has been deselected. To summarize again, the three keywords which we use right now are select, add select, and deselect. Select is used in a case whenever you want to select a single row on a table. Add select is used in a case whenever you want to select more than one row at a time on a table. Similarly, when you want to deselect a row, you can use the keyword called deselect. So these are some commonly seen challenges in SAP table steering. Just to summarize again, the concepts we have seen in SAP table steering are filtering of a table so that you can scan the table in a very short span of time. The second one is setting a constraint on a big table. After that, we have seen these expressions select, deselect, and add select. Let us move on to the next part of today's video, that is SAP tree view. For this demonstration here, I am using an SAP tree view control which is present in the transaction code SBWP. The control that you see on the left side of the screen is the SAP tree view. The node present at the top is called the root node and everything else is a child node. Let us see how to automate this tree view control. I have already scanned a module for this tree view using Tosca, and here is the module for that. Don't get confused with the name as it is showing SAP table tree control. This is actually a tree view and you can see the business type here as well. I have already pulled this module into a test case here. So this is how it looks like. Consider I would like to select a node. For example, I would like to select this node called CA-PDC, which is present under the node called shared folders. And again, this shared folders is present under the root node called workplace. Now the simple thing is I just need to give the path to navigate to this particular node which is separated by arrow marks. First of all, I should give the root node which is workplace. Instead of giving the entire name, I can use the wildcards which is star. And I have given an arrow mark. After that, I need to specify the second node which is shared folders. Finally, I should give the name of the node to which I wanted to navigate to, which is CA-PDC. Again, I'm giving a wildcard because I'm not going to use the entire name here. And the action mode should be set to input. I'm collapsing the tree here. And let me execute this test case. So the required node has been selected. Okay, this is something very basic, but you might land up in some other complex situations. For example, you might not know a node's name. For instance, here, I would say I don't know that this particular node called CA-PDC is present under shared folders. In most of the tree views in SAP, you might be getting some randomly generated material numbers. Those material numbers would change for each and every run. So consider that these shared folders nodes is one such node. The name might be dynamic, it might be changing for every run. So in this case, what I would do is, I know that this shared folders node is present under the root node called workplace, and I know the position of this node. This is the fifth node under the root node. So whenever you get a material number in a tree view, it might be generally coming at the same place. Even though the number might be different, the position of that node would be same. I am considering that this is one such node and this is the fifth position under the root node. And again, I'll know this name called CA-PDC. I need to select this. So the question is, how do you automate this now? This can't be done using the module that you have scanned. This attribute alone won't be enough. We need to have something else, because you can't give the node number here. You can give the name here, but the number can't be given. In such cases, follow the steps that I am going to show now. Go to the module section, open the standard modules, Tbox extensions, SAP, and then there is a standard module for SAP tree view. In this standard module, you will be seeing two attributes known as menu path and the doc tree menu. Expand this attribute called menu path. Here you can see a child attribute called tree menu entry. Copy this attribute called tree menu entry, go to the tree view that you have scanned and paste it here. Paste it under the attribute for the tree view that you have scanned. Now you can see this. Navigate to the test case section and delete this entry. Now we are going with the tree menu entry class that we have added right now. This again is navigating through the path itself, but in a different way. So first give the root node. The action mode for this should be select, and the second level of hierarchy is shared folders. But now, as I told you earlier, I don't know the name. So the name is generated in the runtime. Consider this is a material number and it has been generated during the runtime. So I said I know the position of this. I can give #5. Instead of giving the name, I can give the position here, and the action mode is select. And finally, the last node is ca-pdc. Again a wildcard. One more advantage of using this child class is you can specify the operation which is to be done on that node. For example, if you want to do a click operation on this node, you can specify that. Give a click and set the action mode to input. So let me close this again, collapsing the tree, and I'm now executing this test case. The expected output is it should click on the required node. So you can clearly see that the mouse pointer has moved to the required node and made a click operation on it. So this is how you can use this tree menu entry which is in the standard module for SAP tree view and then pasting it under the module that you have scanned. You can play around with this module. You can try out multiple things like this. Also, you can navigate to the required node using the position itself instead of giving the names. I can use #1, #5, and also you can give the number here as well. This is how you have to automate the tree view control in SAP which is having dynamic node names. I have also written a knowledge base article for this on the support portal. You can find it by searching for SAP tree view on the search bar available on the support portal. Navigate to the knowledge base, and here is the article. Select a node in SAP tree whose name is dynamic. Here I have given a detailed explanation of each and every step which is to be done when you don't know the node's name. That is, when a node's name is dynamic. These are some important concepts on SAP tree control automation. Let us move on to the next topic. The last part of today's video is SAP table tree. For the demonstration here, I am using a table tree which is present in the transaction code DWDM. The structure that you see here on the left side is a table tree. If you notice, this is something similar to a tree view control, but the only difference between a tree view and a table tree is the table tree will be having columns. Here, if you notice, there are two columns in this particular table tree. One is demonstration and the other one is report transaction. Let us discuss one commonly asked question in a table tree which helps us to understand this control better. The most commonly asked question in a table tree is, how do you count the number of nodes under one parent node which are having same name? To explain this better, consider this node called tree controls. Under this you are having 3 subnodes. All these 3 subnodes are having SAP in their name. For example, my use case here would be, I would like to count the number of nodes under this node called tree controls which are containing the name called SAP in them. The question is, how do you automate this using Tosca? I have already created a test case for this procedure. I have also scanned a module. Let me show that. So this is the module for SAP table tree. If you observe clearly, this table tree node is something similar to the tree menu class entry that I have shown earlier. So whenever you want to navigate to a particular node in a table tree, you can just give the names in the similar way I have explained you in the tree view. And once you reach the required node, for example, if you reach the node and this is the node, you can do the operations on the cell. So for our case, there are 2 cells called demonstration and report transaction. So you can select the required cell and perform the required operation in the same way you do it in a table. So let us move on to the test case. This is the test case that I have already created for the query, that is to count the occurrences of a node having same name under one parent node. First of all, I have used the tbox setBuffer module and initialized the buffer called node count to 0. I have set the value of this node count initially to 0. After this, I have used a while loop. In this while loop, you have 2 sections. One is the condition part and the other one is the loop part. In the condition part, I have used the module that I have scanned for this table tree. First of all, what we need to do is we need to navigate till the tree controls node which is present right above these SAP nodes. So this is the node called tree controls. First of all, I have navigated till there, and after that we need to count the number of nodes under this having the name called SAP in them. So for that, I have navigated till the node called tree controls as shown here. I have given the root node's name, that is workbench, and then controls, and the next hierarchy is tree controls. So the required operation should be done on the nodes which are present under this tree control node. For that, I have given a hash repetition on the next node. I haven't mentioned any name here. Instead, I have given a hash repetition. And with this hash repetition, I have selected the cell called demonstration. Because if you see the node SAP tree list, SAP column tree, SAP easy tree, these are present under the column called demonstration. So I have set the column name as demonstration here. And I have given SAP as a constraint value because here we are trying to count the number of nodes having the name SAP in them. To explain this while loop better, what happens is in the first iteration of the while loop, the control will be going till the node called tree controls. In a while loop, the keyword repetition increases with the loop. For example, if while loop is in the first iteration, the value of repetition would be 1 and it would increment similarly. So in the first iteration of the while loop, the value of this would be hash 1. And as I have given the constraint as SAP, it would search for the first occurrence of SAP. If you remember, I have explained the same concept during the table steering part. So what happens is, it would search for the first occurrence of SAP. It finds the first occurrence of SAP. Whenever the condition is passed, the control switches to the loop. In the loop, if you see, I have used the math operation where I am incrementing the buffer count by 1. Earlier, the buffer of node count was 0. Now I am adding 1 to it. So the value would be 1. Again, the control goes to the condition and searches for the hash 2, which is the second repetition of SAP. And again, Tosca finds the second repetition of SAP and the node count would be increased to 2. This loop will be iterating as long as Tosca finds the node with name SAP in it. In our case, once the 3 iterations are done on the while loop, it should be exited. Because after 3 iterations are done, the tbox set buffer would set the node count to value 3. And again it will go to the condition for the 4th time. And now it will find that hash 4 of SAP is not found. Then it should exit the control. Finally, the output is the buffer of node count will be 3. Let us execute this test case and see. First of all, the buffer would be set to 0. Now 3 iterations should be done and the 4th iteration should be failed. That is the expected output. So yes, the test case got passed. I'm opening Tosca and let us verify the scratchbook. So if you see, there are 3 passed iterations and the 4th repetition got failed because hash 4 was not found. That is true, hash 4 shouldn't be found because there are only 3 nodes having the name SAP in them. So the other thing which we need to check is the buffer. So I'm going to the buffer viewer and I have given the name as node count. I'm searching for that buffer. So yes, the buffer value is 3. So if you notice, there are 3 nodes with the name SAP here and the buffer value is 3. This is how you are buffering the number of occurrences which are having the same name under one parent node. So the question is, how do you count the number of occurrences of a node having the same name which is under one parent? So this test case is the answer for that. We have used the while loop and calculated the number of nodes having the same name which are under one parent node. With this, I hope you understood how to iterate through a table tree and also use conditions on them. I have written a knowledge base article on this as well. You can go to the support portal and search for SAP table tree. Navigate to the knowledge base. So the first one which you see, count the number of nodes with the same name in an SAP table tree. In this knowledge base article, you can find each and every step with detailed explanation. So this is about SAP table tree control. To summarize, in the video, we have dealt with SAP prerequisites, SAP table steering, SAP tree view, and the SAP table tree control. I have explained some commonly asked questions in all these topics. If you have more questions on this topic, you can reach out to us anytime using support.tricentis.com. I hope this video has helped you. Thank you for watching this video.
Hello everyone, hope you all are doing good. So today we will be discussing on Tosca server, AdminConsole, common issues and how to troubleshoot them. So let's get started. We often tend to see when we install our Tosca server, we try to start our services, but we could see only our service discovery has started and authentication service, project service are not started. And when we try to start them, we get a error that a timely fashion error that it could not be start. So what could be the reason? Let's check out. So if we see, there could be error in the logs called no SSL connection can be established. So where can we get the logs? Let me navigate to it. So let's go to C drive, program data, Tricentis, logs, authentication logs. So here you will find the log file which would have an error saying no SSL connection can be established. So what might be the reason, or how can we troubleshoot them? So the main reason could be that when we copy a thumbprint from our certificate and try to paste it in our service configuration or directly in the app settings.json, we may tend to copy some of the invisible character at the start or end of the thumbprint. So if you see our image, so there is a space in the start of the thumbprint which was not visible in our certificate. So there are few editors which could get such spaces could be identified. So one of them is a bracket, for example. So how do we tackle this, or how can we solve this problem? So what we can do is whenever let's get into the certificate. So whenever we try to copy a thumbprint, we need to manually type it once so that no extra characters have been embedded in that. So let me show how we can do that. So let's me copy this thumbprint. So every certificate would have different type of thumbprint. So let me copy paste in the notepad. So few thumbprint may have spaces like this way, so it is also valid. In my case, I have in a single one without any spaces. So how can we tackle this? So what we need to do is we need to copy the same thumbprint in a notepad and just retype it everything. So let me type it 13534400F 3340125 B15443852 F180 7 1B 322E 76D5A7. So let me copy this. So once we copy, we need to navigate to the service JSON files, app setting.json files. So let me navigate to it here. So again, I'm going to C drive, program files, Tricentis folder, Tosca server. So authentication service, right click on the app settings. So as you could see, it has no space or something, but it may have been embedded which is not visible in this editor. So I'm just replacing what I've copied in the notepad or typed it and then copied. So I'm saving this. I'm saving it. I'm closing this. I'm again going back. So authentication service is one of the important, and second one would be project services. So again, I'm deleting the thumbprint, adding the thumbprint. So it is in the one place. So let me save this. I've saved that. So again, let's go back to Tosca server. So discovery service is very important as it is a parent one for authentication service and project service. So again, I'm deleting the existing one, replacing with what I've typed and copied it. I'm saving this again. Okay, it's already saved, so I'm closing it. So let's close this as well. So let me navigate to services. So if I could see, let me start all the services. So as service discovery is a parent one, so we need to start first that one. So I could see it is successfully started. So second one will be authentication service. So it also started successfully without any error. So the project service is the third one. So as we could see, all the service have been started successfully. So let's go to our Tosca server. So we could see it's working very well, all service. So we usually see that at times this opens up, and but also the services are running, but admin console is not working. Let's see if our admin console is working or not. Okay, so we have an error occurred while starting the application and some .NET version. So this is also very common issue seen in the cases after we install a Tosca server. So let's see how we can tackle them. So we could see that this is the error which we are getting. So what could be the root cause? So there are two root cause for this issue. One would be Tosca commander of the same version as Tosca server is not installed on the same machine. So let's check if it is true or no. So I'm navigating to control panel, programs, program features, navigating to Tosca. So Tricentis Tosca server. So version is 13.0.0. So the Tosca server version is 13. So both the versions are same. So first root cause could not be the case here. So service discovery in app settings.json of admin console migrate service is not defined correctly. So let's check on that. So let me again navigate to C drive, program files, Tricentis folder, Tosca server. So admin console, app settings. Let me edit it. Okay, so the service discovery is here. So if I see, it looks perfect, but the port is correct for service, that is 5002. And if I see, I have a proper host name, and if I see here, it is HTTP. And if we go to our Tosca server and see it, it's HTTP. Yes. So as there's a mismatch of HTTP and HTTPS, let me correct that. As I have configured my Tosca server in HTTPS, it should always have HTTPS. So let me save this. So I've saved this. So let's go back to migration service, app settings. So if I see service, it has been defined as HTTP colon localhost 5002. As I have HTTPS, let me correct it to HTTPS. And is it a local host? But in my case, I have configured with the host name. So let me copy that host name, replace localhost with the host name which I've copied. So now I've correctly defined it. Let me save it. So once we change any app setting.json, we need to restart our ISS manager. So to restart it, let me open command prompt, right click, run as admin. Let me use a command called IIS reset. So what this command does, it stops all the services of the ISS and again restart them. So as you could see, it has stopped successfully and restarted it. Let me close this. Now let me refresh our Tosca server and let me again navigate to admin console. Great. So we could see there is no error called the .NET version or the error occurred while the application start. So now we could see verifying Tricentis Tosca installation. It has a pop-up and it is stuck there. As usually when you open admin console, this message comes up, but for few seconds, and admin console all the options get pop up. So let's see what could be the case. So as we could see, there is admin console is stuck in verifying Tosca installation. So what could be the root cause of this? The root cause of this issue could be base URL is not defined correctly in app settings of admin console. So let's check on that. Again, I'm opening C drive, program files, Tricentis, Tosca server, admin console, right click and editing on the app settings.json. So if you see, the base URL has been defined as localhost, whereas I have a host name, so I need to replace the localhost with the host name. So let me replace it. Okay, so let me save this as well and close this. As now I've correctly defined the base URL localhost to the actual host name. So as I've changed the as app settings.json, I need to restart our ISS manager. So to do that, again I will navigate to command prompt as admin, use the command ISS reset reset. So now again it is stopping all the services. Successfully it has stopped. Now it is again starting and it has successfully started everything. So let's check on the server side. Let me refresh my Tosca server. Let me click on AdminConsole. So it is signing up and loading. As I mentioned, this pop-up comes for a few minutes and we could see there were few seconds and AdminConsole have popped up with all the options, that is add project, migrate all, and two existing projects. So these were the few common issues which we encounter while we install our Tosca server as HTTP or HTTPS, and we find admin console is not working or the services are not starting. So these are the few tips or troubleshoots which we can follow to resolve our issues. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hello all. Today we are going to discuss about the common problems in Excel Engine 3.0. By Excel Engine 3.0, I mean we are going to discuss the T-box modules which were introduced in Tosca version 12.1. I'll start with the first common problem: how to buffer the row count and column count in an Excel file. So this is the first standard module, T-box Open Excel workbook. Here the workbook name is given, which is going to be used in the further test steps. The path is the path of the Excel file. Create new set to false, which means it is not going to create a new Excel file. This is another standard module, tbox define Excel range. Here the workbook name which was defined earlier is used. Worksheet name is the name of the tab on which the operations are going to be performed. Range name is an alias given to the data range that we're going to define. Now you must be wondering, how can we define the range when we have to buffer the row count and column count? The range defined here is the maximum range which my Excel file is ever going to achieve. For example, there are going to be 15 columns and 50 rows in my Excel file. So I have defined here in such a way that it will cover 26 columns and 100 rows, which is the maximum value. Tbox Excel range manipulation module. Here the range name which was defined earlier is used. Now in order to buffer the row count, we are using the last content row, which means it will buffer the row number of the cell which has some value, the last cell which has some value. And for column count, it is going to the last column in which the cell has some value. So here not equal to blank has been given as constraint. I'll execute the test case. Now count has been set to value 20 and count 1 has been set to value 2. I'll go to the Excel sheet once. So as you can see, there are 2 columns and 20 rows. So this is how the row count and column count is buffered here. Moving ahead to the second common problem: steer each and every value, every cell of a column. So these two steps are going to be common in every Excel test case. Additionally, we have defined a buffer here, counter, which has been initialized to a value 1. Now we have created two folders, repetition folders, one for steering through the columns and the other one for steering through the rows. As you can see, the repetition has been given value 3 for columns, and for rows it has been given a value 22. Now as we move ahead, here the row has been given as hash repetition and hash b of counter for columns. That means in the first iteration it is going hash 1 and hash 1 for column as well. That means row 1 and column 1. And the value which is going to be entered here is row 1 column 1. Now as soon as this folder is executed for the second time, the repetition value changes and the value which is going to be entered here is row 2 column 1. In this way it will be executed 22 times. It will go to this next step and it will increase the value of the counter, and it will execute this particular folder which is used for steering through the columns for the second time. Now my counter value is 2 and repetition is again started with value 1. So the value which is entered in column 2 is row 1 column 2, row 2 column 2, row 3 column 2, and similarly 22 times. Now this value increases to 3 and again this folder is executed for the third time and this will execute 22 times. So the first value which will be entered is row 1 column 3, row 2 column 3, row 3 column 3, similarly 22 times. And then it will save the Excel workbook using tbox close Excel workbook here, and here the save is given as value true. I'll first show you the Excel file. So this is blank here. I'll execute the test case. We'll see the Excel file. So as you can see, row 1 column 1, similarly row 22 column 1, row 1 column 2, row 22 column 2, and similarly for column 3. Now you can make this test case dynamic just by providing the buffers instead of the hard-coded values and repetition. Now my next common problem is how to count the number of occurrence of a particular text in a column. So for example, I want to check here in column 1 how many times A is repeated. So for that, I'll execute the test case. Occurrence has been set to value 6. Now what we have done here is we have just defined the row number is given as dynamic here, row is kept dynamic, and we are putting a constraint for column 1. So it is looking for such a row where the column 1 has value A, since constraint is there, and it will count the occurrence and will increase the value which is stored in result count. So now we'll see the occurrence of A here manually. So there are 6 occurrences. Now the next problem is how to use constraint in an Excel file. So these steps are common, the first 2 test steps. And in the third step, now what we are doing here is we are checking that in column 1 the value which is present against Z in column 2 is 3. So here we are checking for such a row in which the column 1 has value Z, it will constrain there, and it will check for the second column for this particular value, and it will verify that column 2 has value 3 here. I'll execute the test case. Expected value is 3 and actual value is 3. Now moving ahead to the next problem, you might come across a scenario where you have to scan these menu items. So this can be done using Tbox engine. So here is my Excel file. This can be scanned using Tbox UI engine. You can normally select these controls. So there might be a requirement that you have to apply a filter, then you can select this control. You have to replace a string with some other string, then you can steer this control. So in this way, it can be simply identified using Tbox UI engine. Moving ahead to the next problem, you might face this error when using Tbox Open Excel Workbook test step. Exception has been thrown by the target of an invocation. So there are certain recommendations for that. Here is the list of DLLs which needs to be checked that you have enough permissions for these DLLs. And how to do that, you can go to Tricentis home folder. This path may vary as per the Tosca version. I'll search for the file, going to the properties of this file, selecting the user from which you are logged in, and you should have read and write access. If you do not have read and write access for this particular user, then you can edit that and provide the read and write access from here. Now since I have all the access, so this is grayed out for me. This needs to be checked for all these DLLs. If the issue is still not resolved, then you can do Excel online repair. For that, you just have to search for Excel online repair and check for this Microsoft link. Here you have to select your operating system and follow the steps suggested by Microsoft. Even if the issue is not resolved, then you have to check if you have a valid Microsoft license. So that can be done by going to account, and here you have to check if your email ID is mentioned correctly here. So you should have a valid Excel license as well. If the issue is still not resolved after following these 3 suggestions, then you can report this to Tricentis support. So this is all as of now for common Excel problems. Thank you.